Welcome to Muddled Minds. So, space news of the day. Europe's Exomars lander is officially dead. Well, according to NASA's satellites, as it looks like there are some impacts that weren't there present prior to the last pass of the satellite on the surface. So, it just looks to be about a black spot, and then there's some other white spots. So, assuming one of them's an impact, and the other one must just be maybe it's the heat shield, something that popped off, it's just shining. But the ExoTerra lander itself was launched back in March and took 7 months to get there. And just earlier this week is when it was supposed to get released from the orbiter, the TGO as they call it. The orbiter is supposed to do some surveying from, outer space basically at hopefully to a point of being about a couple hundred miles away. And the main point of both of them, though, is to determine more evidence on life on Mars, because they're trying to figure out more of why there is some methane in the atmosphere on Mars. It's definitely questionable because majority of the methane that we know is produced by organic, life. Humans cause it with fossil fuels and livestock with the farming and different things like landfill and biomasses. Different feelings and different agricultural processes seem to create it. I mean, there's also other processes not caused by us, which it's still life, as in the bacteria in the oceans, and because they'll, by doing oceans and wetlands. Also, termites are a pretty significant source. It's kind of weird, but essentially those are natural sources, and in all cases, there's life associated with methane. So in order to have methane on other planets, because there's also methane on Venus and Mercury, of course, Venus's case, I believe it was caused by the volcanoes, process of all the stuff coming out of volcanoes, which causes their hell of a dense atmosphere that they do have, which is why it's so hot there. It's probably what caused that methane. Mercury, I'm not sure if they know for sure what that is, but Mars, they for sure don't know what it is, which is why we sent this, Europe sent this orbiter for mankind to figure out what is causing this. But of course, 3 days ago, on October 19th, when it was supposed to make its landing, it kind of failed because they lost signal, and they assumed it basically crashed, but they had no idea. It was pretty much a good assumption. Because basically how the lander works, it was supposed to hit the atmosphere. As it comes down, the heat shield takes a lot of the brunt of the force. Then it hits a point where some rocket thrusters will hit to help slow it down even more. And then after a while, the parachute will come out. When the parachute comes out, heat sink will pop off and pop out of the way, and then it'll land, free float down the rest of the way and land. Of course, somewhere in the initial beginning of the thruster burst phase, it kind of lost signal. And at that point, the thruster's probably completely cut out, and then it probably just crash landed into Mars' surface, probably going about 190 miles an hour. Which is why in the photos that NASA captured, there looks to be quite a black spot as a potential crater where it actually crashed. But that's just how it is. That goes to show you that Mars is definitely, even though we have a bunch of landers there, it's kind of a give or take on if we can actually land something there, because it's not as easy as you think. We've got some stuff landed on Mars right now, but obviously it's going to take a lot more figuring out and effort to get more stuff landed on Mars, especially if we plan on putting people there in the future. Definitely a long ways off on that. Of course, we can't even put people there until we figure out that there is or isn't life there. Because if there is life, then we have to try to preserve the life and study it, so then there'll definitely be even longer time period before people can go there. Or the fact that there already is life there because we brought it there from all the orbiters that we seem to have crash landed there, and all the ground explorers, all the machines that are down there running around right now. Yeah, we have a clean protocol, but there's no way to clean every single little bit. There's a good chance there's some bacteria, because as NASA's found out with some studies at the International Space Station, with having bacteria attached in a petri dish on the outside of the ISS, some bacteria is able to survive space and frigid temperatures, straight UV rays and cosmic ray bombardment, and yet it survived. So there's no reason that it couldn't have survived the long trip to Mars and still be on the outside and end up landing there and then spreading. Of course, being able to prove that we brought the life there or the life already existed is kind of something else down the line. But of course, if they find the case that maybe we did do a good job cleaning and there also wasn't any life there, as of right now, maybe there was life in the past, which is obviously potential with different things we have found recently with the potential of water. And of course, the methane we're still trying to figure out, which was the whole point of this mission that Europe had landed with the TJO and the Exomars lander. But essentially, if there's nothing, then it will go straight to the point of being like, yeah, let's get some people there, because then there'll be a lot less restrictions on where you can go on Mars and what you can do to help try to set up a small, human outpost. But of course, we'll find out what the future holds. First of all, we need to probably, if the TGO can actually figure some stuff out, and probably take another year for itself to get into the actual orbit to be able to do any studies on Mars' atmosphere, to figure out where that methane is coming from. Probably need to get another probe sent there to kind of, get on the surface and get a lander there to actually get up close, because nothing is better to actually study something than a physical contact with it, because then we can actually figure out what it is, why it's there, and how it works, compared to something off in the distance. Usually an orbiter is pretty damn close, so it's helpful, because usually you can kind of get close enough that you can actually scan some stuff and maybe even capture some stuff. Essentially, if we get some more landers, we're good. Just like we probably need to send some landers to, moons of Jupiter and Saturn. That'd be definitely useful, because there's definitely some potential of life on those moons too, due to their conditions and their similarity to what life really needs in our terms. Because of course, life as we know it may be how all life is, but given how life works, it's not necessarily the case. Just because we're carbon-based here and we seem to need oxygen and we cause a lot of methane doesn't mean that's how every single life form works. And maybe there's some silicone-based life, maybe there's some other based life that potentially is very similar, but it just runs just a little bit different. Maybe it breathes carbon dioxide instead of giving it off. Gives off oxygen, breathes in carbon dioxide. Some weird backwards process. It's like a plant type species organism that lives and breathes. That'd be kind of weird, but you never know. But basically, when it comes to space and the potential of aliens, there's pretty much endless possibility of what could truly be there. At least with Mars, it's so close and so simple. We've had plenty of satellites, orbiting it, taking pictures, figuring it out. There's nothing too, out of the ordinary going on there. Just some small exploration, trying to figure out, what's going on the surface and what happened in the past, because obviously nothing's going on right now, and there's hardly an atmosphere, and gravity is pretty, smaller than here. It's pretty damn cold, and it also gets pretty warm because of the lack of that atmosphere, and it's like 1% of what we have. But because of that, there might have been something in the past. When you talk about, where did life on Earth come from? We have Mars rocks here, as in asteroids that have become meteorites and hit Earth. Was there life in the past on Mars that lived there and then eventually made it here and then sprouted here? Or was it the opposite? Or did both places come from somewhere else? That's the thing. The spread of life is easy as a couple planets colliding, big-ass rocks go off in the distance, and they go through light years and hit another planet and some other planets and some others and galaxies away, and boom, spread of life, because life seems to be able to travel, at least at the smallest organic level. It's in space. But back to, what's reality and what's going on right now is, well, ExoMars lander failed. That's a setback, but we have many more potential projects coming into the future to hopefully be able to determine more on what causes this life, if there is even a potential of life, and how we figure out how to deal with these other sources of life. Thanks for checking out this video today. Obviously, Mars is a hot topic right now. So with Elon Musk really bolden for that, we're gonna get people on Mars in the 2020s. It's gonna happen. But of course, that obviously depends on if they can figure out if there is any potential signs of life on Mars or not, because they kind of need to figure that out before they even send anybody there. Because if they send people there afterwards, and they're like, oh shit, there is some life here, then there's the potential of contaminating them or getting us contaminated by them because the people could never come back. Of course, we need a hell of a technology advancements if everybody ever needs to come back, because as we're set right now, they're basically planning on sending people to Mars with no intention coming back. Start a society there, basically. Which is possible. Requires a lot of resources, though. Gotta have a lot of shit land there prior to anybody going there. But hey, shit can happen.